Okay, so this is how to use components in Fusion 360. So I'll be making a simple box. So start by creating your first component by going into here, right-clicking, and then clicking New Component. So I'll start with the bottom of the box. So I'll call it Box Bottom. And now you can see right here how there's this little dot. That means this is now the active component. So when we start drawing, we're drawing in this component. So now you can create a sketch, create it on the bottom surface, just some eyeballed dimensions. Now you can extrude it. And now I want to make little joint tabs. So I can sketch on the top again. Draw another rectangle. And if you've noticed, I've been dragging to select a tool. If you drag down with your right click and you hold, you can see your different tool selections. So if you quickly drag the shape you want, in this case down and then to the left to bring up your sketch dimension, it will bring up your tool automatically. So now I'm done with this. I can extrude this inwards 5 millimeters. So now I have my bottom shape of my box. So now, right now my box is my active component. I will go back up here and make the world my active component by right-clicking and select Activate. And now I will make another component. We'll call this one Box Side. Now with box side, as you can see, now that this is the active component, this is kind of transparent, meaning we can't edit it anymore. But I don't want to see this box part at all. I just want to make it, I want to make this bottom box completely invisible. So I can right click and then isolate. So now I'm working on the box side. So I'll sketch on a plane, the left or the front plane in this instance. So I'll make it 100 millimeters. Now I will extrude it 10 millimeters. And then finally, I want the pieces to have a fillet, or sorry, not a fillet. There we go, this instead. So we'll select these two surfaces, and then you can drag inwards. So 10 millimeters, that's good. And now we can go back and select the overall world as the active component. We have to leave isolation, though, unisolate. And now you can see we have this bottom shape and this top shape. So now it's time to start connecting them together. So you can see I can move them around freely right now, and I'd ideally have them connected together. So what I can do is go to box bottom and make it, where is it? I'll ground box bottom. This means that box bottom can no longer move. If I click on it, it won't move. This is now the base of our assembly. Now I can take my box side and I can connect this to that. So I can go to the Assemble Joint tool, and it says some components have been moved. That means I've moved them from their initial modeled position. just click capture position, otherwise it will jump these back to where they were originally. And now I'll use a rigid connection, and then I will select on the bottom surface, on this edge right here. So that's our first point. And now you have to choose on the other model where it connects to. So if I do it like this, it will essentially connect this sideways outwards. But if I make sure that this little circle is facing upwards, it will connect correctly. Now that I've connected it, I can actually offset it as well, but I'll keep it where it is and just click OK. And now this piece is connected to this piece, so if I pull on this piece, it won't move because it's connected to this grounded piece right here. Now obviously this is only one side of the box, we're going to need multiple sides of the box. So I can duplicate it with Control-C, Control-V, and it will, or Command-C and Command-V if you're on Mac. And then you can drag this second object wherever you like. So I prefer just to move it out and then kind of rotate it how I want it, generally how I want it to be positioned. And now I can connect it once again with the Assemble Joint tool. So I can join it another way. So last time we joined the bottom of this corner to the bottom of this edge. Instead, what we can do this time is bind the front face to this face. And as you can see, you get the same result. Now I can duplicate it again and move it where I need it. Okay. And then I go to Assemble Joint. Now here's what happens if you don't put the dots in the correct place. So if I choose in the middle right here, and then I choose, say, the middle here, it's going to line up those 2 points, and then you'll get this weird shape. And yes, you could offset it, but these aren't the best joints. Because if you change the shape of this bottom thing right here, then you have to come back and change your offset dimensions, and it won't automatically reset itself. Oh, thank you. So then we'll join it just like the other ones. I can join it in the corner actually, if I wanted to, although this is not the best joint technique. And now it's connected. So now, since these three components are all the same component, you can see they're labeled 1, 2, and 3. That means if I change one, it will update all of the other ones. So if I click Edit on this component, if I decide to edit one of the original sketches, or actually what I can do instead is I can activate the component, isolate it, and then I can sketch on its surface, and I'll make just a random hole in the middle and extrude it through the surface. I can actually choose, rather than a distance, up to a surface, so I'll select the surface. So it always cuts through. And now if I exit my isolation, unisolate, you can see that it's now updated all of the other components that are the same. Now what I've done right now is I've done essentially a bottom-up assembly. So when you're CAD modeling, there's two ways to build an assembly, either a bottom-up assembly or a top-down assembly. So a bottom-up assembly is when you design each component individually and then move them into place. You could also do a top-down assembly, which is when you make a new component based on the previous components you have in your model. So say I want to make a new component, and I have it isolated, I have it activated, but I haven't actually isolated it. I can choose the top plane, and then I can make a sketch based on the existing shape. And I'll just make square, stop the sketch, and then extrude it. And now I have this top component. You can double click to rename actually. So we'll call it box top. And now I can activate the whole entire world. And since we haven't actually joined this component, I can move it around. So I will joint it right here. Okay. And now, because this component has been made after every other component, if I change a component that was made before it, this will now update. So now if I go back to box bottom and I edit its sketch, the very first sketch you can see down here in the timeline. If I scroll back the timeline here and edit it, or I can just right click and click edit sketch, and I change the dimensions. Now I stop the sketch. Oh, so the reason why this isn't updating is because this isn't constrained to this edge. I kind of just drew the shape. Sorry about that. So see, this isn't actually constrained to the edges of the existing shapes. So this should be coincident with this point right here. And this should be coincident with this point. There we go. So now you can see it automatically updates. And then I would have to go back, of course, and change the box side as well. So I'll change this to 150. And see, because we built this box part bottom up, that means I have to go back and change it after the fact, as opposed to if I built top down, as in this component is based on this component and this component is based on those components, then if I change this, everything else will update. However, because I made it each part essentially individually, that means when I change one shape, I have to update all the other shapes. So this is how to use